What is going on, everybody? And welcome back to another Mock Draft Monday. It has been a couple weeks. I have been sicker than a dog, as they say, kind of knocked on my ass for the past couple weeks. But I'm back, ready to go for today's show. We are going to do a single QB mock draft based on everything I've seen, the players that I've scouted and everything. Obviously, the Senior Bowl just happened, so there's a lot of information we were able to get on a lot of these players because of the Senior Bowl. So for this one, we're going to do a single QB mock draft. I'm going to do round one today, and round two will drop later this week. Let's get into it. All right, so as you can see, 1 through 12 on the board here. Mock Draft 4.0. This is just straight rookies. Rookie draft here. Again, we're going to do the first round today. Second round will drop on Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure which day yet, but it'll drop one of those days. And again, it is a single QB draft. So with that being said, at the 1-1, I was torn between a lot of picks. A lot of people sometimes they want to go that wide receiver, right? Because we know that value is going to hold for longer. And it seems they have sometimes a better predictive of success. Sometimes you want to go that running back. A lot of dynasty teams are built around those young running backs. You want to get them for that first 4 years. Most of the running backs, I think, in this year likely going day 2. So you're likely getting them for 4 years. Anything after that is kind of a plus. But most of these guys, unfortunately, don't go much further than the rookie contracts, at least not for us for fantasy. And so those were the guys I was looking at. There was one running back and a couple wide receivers. And I ended up going Treylon Burks here at number 1. I do think he has a ton of upside. He is not a finished prospect. He is extremely raw still, in my opinion, as a wide receiver. There's a lot to love about him, though. And the one person I will give credit for, Ray Garvin at RayGQ on Twitter, he said that he reminds him a lot of Josh Gordon. And ever since he said that, I cannot stop seeing it. As a Browns fan, I love it. And if you remember what he was able to do way back in the day with, I believe it was Derek Anderson at quarterback in a year where he missed a couple games as well and led the league in receiving, had a ton of receiving touchdowns. That's what Treylon Burks can be, and we're just now seeing the floor. There's a lot that he can improve on, and if he goes somewhere that helps him improve, I do think he likely has a chance and has the highest ceiling in this class. So he's the easy 1-1 there for me. At 1-2, it was back down between two players again. It was the other wide receiver I thought about taking at 1 and the running back, and I decided to go with the running back, Breece Hall. He is my number 1 running back right now. I still have some players that I need to grade, and it's some things I want to go back and look at, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think that's going to change for me. Breece Hall is an amazing running back. I know that he doesn't have that long speed. He's rarely taking 60 plus, 70 plus to the house, though he does have some of those runs on tape. He doesn't do it that often, but you know what he does do? Everything else really, really well. Really great footwork, really great vision. He hits the cutback lanes. He's a good receiving back as well. He does everything good. And the one thing I've tried to explain when it comes to guys like him, especially with the vision and the way he runs behind the line and how patient he is when you give it to him on first down and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 4, like that matters. And he's a guy that doesn't have to come off the field because he is a good receiving back. I do think he can do a lot once he gets into the NFL. You know, he may not be a consistent RB1, but there's not a lot of RBs that are. Rarely do you get a guy who's an RB1 for multiple seasons. I do think he has got that like 13 to 18 value, and he likely keeps that for the 4 years that he is a starter. He is a really good running back. He's a guy that I'm willing to bet on being the best in this class. That puts back up at 103, and I am taking that wide receiver now, and it's Garrett Wilson. And it is still very close between him and Treylon Burks for me. This is going to me talking on both sides of my mouth here because I did take Treylon Burks 1, but that was because of upside. And typically in rookie drafts at 1-1, I'm betting on upside. Garrett Wilson, he is my wide receiver 1 right now. And some people may think that's a homer take because I am a Buckeyes fan. But for me, I think it's just because when Wilson hits the field in the NFL, I think he can produce day 1. And I do think that he can probably be a wide receiver 2, like a low end 2, maybe high end 3 to start off for fantasy. And I think a lot of that comes as he just has a very safe floor. He's very good. He creates separation. He can contest and catch it. You know, he's not going to burn you to the house, but he just does everything well. He's a very good route runner. Very good. He's got like arrogant hands. Like he plucks the ball out of the air, can catch anything thrown to him. I love Garrett Wilson. Now, his ceiling, in my opinion, is not as high as Treylon Burks, which is where the argument comes in between the two of them. But for me, it's there. I've got three guys, three wide receivers in my tier one that I think are all like true X's, true alphas, can be that for an NFL offense. And Burks and Wilson are kind of like half a baby step above that third guy. And it's just because I've seen a little bit more out of the two of them, or more because of Burks' upside. Garrett Wilson, I've seen more out of him than the other two. And I just think that his floor is much safer, and I don't think his ceiling is far off from what Burks is. So that is why he comes in at 1-3 for me. I don't have an issue with any of these guys going in any order, to be honest with you. That's just kind of how the day fell when I decided I was going to do this and kind of the picks that I wanted to do. Burks there at 1, Breece Hall at 2, and then Garrett Wilson at 3. At 4, mentioned it earlier, a lot of people love to build around running backs, so I wouldn't be surprised if more running backs go early. Wouldn't be surprised if Breece Hall goes 1. Maybe Isaiah Spiller goes 2. For me, he falls to 1.4. I like Spiller a lot. Footwork has improved every single year that he's been in college. It was not great his freshman season. Started working with the Footwork King, and we saw an amazing change in that in his sophomore season, and it continued into his junior season. There are still things I'd like to see from him. I feel like he gets brought down a little bit too easily sometimes. Now, he is a very aggressive and physical runner, but there are times I feel like he gets brought down a little bit too easy. And I don't know. There's just something. It's like maybe it's a gut feeling. I don't know. I like him as a player. There's something about him that I'm a little bit worried is not going to translate. But overall, he's a very good running back. He hits the hole, good footwork. As I've mentioned, it's continued to get better. And in my opinion, he's one of the best receiving backs in this class. Like, he's actually lined up outside in the slot. He made a catch this year in the end zone that like a wide receiver would make with the way he extended his body to catch it. He is a really good receiving back. So I don't have an issue if you take him above Breece Hall. Right now, Breece Hall is my number 1, and I don't think that that's really going to change. I'll be honest, I haven't finished grading Spiller yet. They are close, so maybe Spiller jumps him, but as of right now, I've graded 5 running backs. Breece Hall is my highest. Spiller is getting close. I need to finish grading him out, but I'm picking him at 4 here. At 5 is my last wide receiver in tier 1, and that's Drake London out of USC. Kid had a phenomenal season this year and likely would have been even better had he not gotten injured. Last year, he played almost exclusively in the slot. And there were a lot of people worried, well, he's not the most explosive. He's really not a deep threat. He doesn't do a lot of creating separation, trying to get my air quotes on the camera there. Doesn't really do a lot of creating of separation. He's not great at it. And now he's in the slot. Like, that's not going to translate to the NFL. Well, he went outside this year and played like 95% of the snaps outside. And he dominated. Drake London, you're right. He's not Jameson Williams. He's not Chris Olave, who just creates separation downfield. Like, Chris Olave is not the most explosive runner in this class. He's not the fastest. He finds ways to create separation. Drake London does the same thing. In the NFL, quarterbacks don't need you to have 2-3 steps on a defensive back to create separation. If you have half a step, that's separation for most. And Drake London can do that. He is great. He is very good at everything. Great hands. I do think he creates good separation. He's definitely a contested catch guy, but what he could do in the slot and in the outside this year, he answered every single question for me. I have nothing else to ask of this kid. I think he's going to be really good in the NFL. In my latest mock that I did with Matt Fox that dropped on campus2canton.com, which you can check out, I had him going to the Browns, and I would love that, actually. Some people are going to hate that spot because of Baker Mayfield, but I think with what he could do at the X for that team, he'd be a phenomenal get for the Browns. I'd love him there. He's at my 1-5. At 1-6, we're going back to the running back when we're taking Kenneth Walker. I have graded him out. He does come in lower than Breece Hall for me. Had that amazing season this year. And he's a guy that I've really liked. If you follow me at SportsFanaticMB on Twitter, you can see I was talking about him even last year. Before that, when he was at Wake Forest, saying I didn't understand why he wasn't getting the ball. For whatever reason, he just never got the workload like he did at Michigan State. I don't want to say he's not a good receiving back because Michigan State didn't ask him to do that a lot, but I don't think he's as good as Spiller and Hall, but I do think he's a very good running back. I'm not comping him to Nick Chubb, but I think that's what you're probably expecting out of him when you get to the NFL, just hoping that he's a workhorse, a guy who's going to get the ball a ton, get you a lot of yards, get you touchdowns, probably not going to catch you many passes. And there's definitely a couple offenses that he fits in their schemes that are in need of a running back. So if he goes to an RB needy team, a la like an Atlanta Falcons, I think he'd be a great fantasy fit there. You know, we saw what Cordero Patterson, Mike Davis was able to do the year prior, but that was in Carolina. Still, with the way that Arthur Smith uses his running backs, I think Kenneth Walker would be a great fit in Atlanta. He comes in here at 1-6 for me. At 1-7 is a guy I just mentioned. I was torn right here between these two guys. I went Chris Olave because he's healthy. Him and the next player that I'm about to talk about are very close in my rankings. I have not done a lot of grading of my wide receivers. I've only done 4, which was Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Treylon Burks, and Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams did not come into the tier 1. As I mentioned earlier, Drake London was the last guy. What I like about Chris Olave, and I know a lot of people are going to crap on him because he came back to school and everybody's like, oh, he should just go into the NFL draft. From everything I heard, people I've talked to said that he was valued as like a round 3, round 4 draft pick. They're talking about him being a round 1 to round 2 draft pick this year. So in essence, it was a smart decision for him to go back to school, people. Stop crapping on the kid because he went back to school and he didn't come back and have a Devonta Smith season. That didn't matter. The grades he was getting were not where he wanted to be, and now he's likely going to get that. He's going to be likely a first round, at worst second round draft pick, which then increases what he was told last year. So it was a good decision for me, and in my opinion, I'm not Chris Olave. I'm not part of his camp. So, think what you want on that. But I do think it was a good decision for him to go back to school because he did increase his draft capital. And in that case, I do think that he's just a very good wide receiver. He's likely never going to be an alpha. He's likely a wide receiver 2, probably, if he goes to a good offense, I think there may be a season he can have a wide receiver 1 year because of touchdowns. But overall, with what he could do route running wise, he is a very, very good route runner. And he just creates separation. You will watch the All-22 film on him sometimes, and he's right there running with the defender. And the next thing you know, he's just created 4 yards of separation. Like, how the hell did he do that? Because he's not the most bursty. He doesn't have the most speed. He's not the most athletic. He's just a very, very talented wide receiver. And I think he's going to be exactly that in the NFL. I'm very intrigued to see where he goes because I will say he is one of the guys that I think is very and team dependent. He is one of those guys where, like Jameson Williams, who I'm just going to go ahead and say is who I took next there at 1-8 out of Alabama. Jameson Williams, I think because of his field stretching ability and speed, really doesn't matter what offense he goes to because I think he'll produce. Olave is one where I'm a little hesitant to think that he's going to produce regardless of where he goes. I do think he needs to go to a good team. Williams here at 1.8. And it's really just the knee. I want to make sure that he's good and healthy to go. I know everybody says, oh, man, it was just an ACL. ACLs are nothing nowadays. That is true. I just want to see it. I'm very curious to see where Williams goes. I do think that it probably doesn't hurt him in the end that he tore, obviously had the ACL tear there in the national championship game. But I'm very curious to see where he goes because that's the other thing. Chris Olave was ahead of him at Ohio State. And he was never able to beat him out. While he put up incredible numbers last year at Alabama, you do, in my opinion, have to question a little bit why he was never able to truly break out at Ohio State, especially with the way that they move those wide receivers around. I mean, look at what JSN did this year. He was a freshman last year, and he was beating him out for snaps. So that does matter. At the end of the day, I think Jameson Williams is an incredible wide receiver. Right now, again, I've only graded 4 wide receivers. He is my 4th graded, but he is a tier 2 guy with the way my systems grade out. He ranks in the tier 2. And I do think that he's going to be a very good wide receiver. I do think he's got wide receiver 1 upside because of his speed and everything else that he brings to the field. At 1.9, I was kind of torn on what I wanted to do here. And a lot of it is just people overvalue running backs in rookie drafts. And I think, especially with this class, once those 3 go off the board, you're likely going to see some people reach. I don't know that I would take Jerome Ford here, but I'm putting him here because I do think this could be where he goes. I know a lot of people will look at this wide receiver class and say, hey, it is so deep that I can grab somebody in the second round. I'm going to get a running back who I think can do something. Jerome Ford is good. He's a very athletic running back, very, very good at Cincinnati. I think he's got more speed than he gets credit for. Very bursty. Do think he's got some pretty good vision as well. I don't know that he's going to be a full-time NFL back, though, and that does worry me a little bit, but I do think that he could easily be a guy in a committee and do something special there, maybe. I'm not really sure. but I'm excited for him. I'm very interested to see where he ends up going in the NFL draft because I do think he could be a day two guy. And, he was at the Senior Bowl this past week. Did not play in the game because congratulations. He had a little baby girl. Probably never going to watch this drone for, but if you do, congratulations. That's awesome. Rooting for you. Hashtag girl dad. But that is why he missed the game. Very curious to see what he does in the combine and the drills and what his testing scores are because I do think he's going to test very well. And I do think if he ends up being a day two pick, he's likely going to be pushed up somewhere in this first round, early second. So I've got him going at 1-9 here. At 110, taking David Bell. I've said it before. I will say it again. I'm not copying him to this as a player, but I think he is the Rashad Bateman of this class and the fact that he just does everything well. He doesn't have the most, elite speed. He's not got elite burst. He's not an elite contested catch guy. He's got elite body control, in my opinion. He just does everything well, like Rashad Bateman. I know Rashad Bateman did not have a great year in Baltimore this year. I think some of that had to do with the injury, and then Lamar gets hurt. I think Bateman's in for a big second year. I think that's what Bell is going to be. He's never going to be that wide receiver one. Hell, he may not even be a wide receiver two that often. But I do think he's got high-end wide receiver 3 upside. Most of us who play in dynasty leagues are starting 2 to 3 wide receivers and then multiple flex spots. So David Bell is going to have value for you. I am very curious to see where he goes because there has been a lot of talk that the NFL community is not as high on David Bell as some of us are in the fantasy space. So I'm curious to see where he goes. I don't see any way he doesn't go day 2. I'd be surprised if he falls into the third round, but I it could happen with the way the NFL spaces are talking about it. I think at worst he's probably a second round draft pick. And if that happens, he's going to go in the first round of drafts because of his production and draft capital. And I think David Bell is just a really damn good wide receiver. At 111, I would not argue if you decided to take this wide receiver all the way up at 1-6, and that's George Pickens out of Georgia. We saw him come back from the ACL tear earlier in the year. He played in the playoffs, had that great catch in the national championship game. My biggest concern with Pickens is that he's just been inconsistent on the field. And I know there's a lot of factors that play into that. He was injured, had a really, really bad quarterback play most of the time that he was there. But for the half season that he had JT Daniels, he was electric. He is an athletic and physical freak. If he is healthy and he goes into the combine, he's likely going to blow up that testing. And I hope that he does. I really do because I want to be wrong on George Pickens because he is, in my opinion, a very, very good wide receiver. It's really just been the inconsistencies on the field. It's the only thing that worries me. And I it's hard to judge him because he's got such little tape due to the injuries and everything going on. Go back in freshman season, there were some things that I was a little bit questioned about, sometimes him getting off the line. But at the end of the day, he's a great wide receiver. I have no doubt I'm probably going to end up being wrong on him. He is currently my wide receiver 6 without fully grading him. Could jump up higher. I know some have him in their wide receiver tier 1, especially some people that I truly respect. And that makes me think maybe I'm going to be wrong on him. And I'm okay being wrong on him. I am. As I do think a lot of other people will drop him as well. Not that that makes it okay. You want to avoid the echo chamber, right? But I do think at the end of the day, Pickens is going to be a very good wide receiver. I'm excited to see what he does at the combine if he's able to participate and possibly be one of the top wide receivers off the board in the NFL. And if he is, he's going to go much higher than he is going right now in this rookie draft. Last but not least, and this is a little bit of a bounce up from the Senior Bowl week and weekend, and that's Tyler Badie, running back out of Missouri. He got a lot of pub this week. Looked great. A lot of people saying he looked like one of the best running backs that were there this week and this weekend. Very good runner, very good receiver as well. I don't know that he's ever going to be a workhorse in the NFL. I've seen a lot of people talking about him being the next Nyheim Hines, which is awesome. But you've got to go to an offense that's going to use him the way the Colts use Nyheim Hines. And that, I think, is the really big question because I think as a fantasy owner, we all know that Frank Reich is very, very frustrating, especially if you roster a lot of Jonathan Taylor and why is Nyheim Hines on the field? So if that is what Tyler Badie can be, he needs to go to an offense that's going to use him that way. But I do think he could be a very good PPR back. And again, I really think, at least in a lot of the rookie drafts that I'm in, running backs get pushed up, especially in what, in my opinion, is a little bit of a weaker class than what we saw last year. And the class is coming up 2023. Well, really not 2024. 2024 is going to have like 2 guys. 2023 has a lot of really good running backs. So I think people are going to reach because, again, a lot of people just, running back seems to be that one position that is highly overvalued in dynasty leagues and really is hard to get those high end studs. I mean, look at CMC. We hope he's going to bounce back to be an RB1, right? But we don't know with the injuries. Zeke has fallen off a cliff. Like the change at running back is just so quick. You never know what's going to happen. And so I do think those guys get pushed up the board a little bit. So Tyler Batty coming in at 112 for me. Guys, if you have a minute, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the bell icon so you know when all of these videos go live. We would appreciate it at Campus to Canton. We are trying to continue to grow this YouTube channel and give you guys a ton of content to help you guys win not just your Dynasty leagues, but your CFF leagues, your Devy leagues, everything. We're trying to cover everything as we do from the college side all the way up to those players when they make it to the Hall of Fame. Technically, I guess retire for fantasy teams because we don't really care if they go to the Hall of Fame. Except for, I've got a couple leagues where we notate that. I think it's pretty cool to keep record if you've had a player long enough and they go into the Hall of Fame. That's a story for a different time. We will be dropping round 2 later this week. Let me know in the comments, who is it that you would have taken at a different spot? Did I put Tyler Batty and Jerome Ford up here too high? Would you have taken one of those other wide receivers, a Wandale? Jahan Dotson's getting a lot of love. Or, would you have moved up a Dameon Pierce, who also had a really big week at the Senior Bowl? Who would you have taken in this 112? And tell me who you would have taken out. Don't tell me who just you would have taken. Tell me who you would have taken out of this top 12 to put that player in. Looking forward to interacting with you guys in the comments. And make sure to come back later this week for round 2.